We're going to
Yes.
start with the game that I thought was incredibly fun with a couple teams that I think are pretty damn fun, and that is the Vikings and the Lions. Just setting the table here. This is the Monday hangover, by the way. I am extremely tired. I flew back from San Francisco this morning at 6:30 in the morning. It's been a long 12 hours or so. We're getting going here. This is the Monday hangover where you had some of the games that we did not talk about on Sunday night show. And we are going to start that list with the Vikings and the Lions today. The Vikings come back, beat the Lions 28-24. Vikings go to 2-1. Lions are 1-2, which seems like some sort of injustice in the football world that this Lions team is 1-2, which we can dig into. That was probably my prevailing thought coming out of this, is that the Lions are good. The Lions are enjoyable. Even at 1-2, I think they're going to be relevant. But what was your main takeaway from this one?
I mean, if we're going general, I think I'm on the same side as you, right? Like, I used to think that this phrase was the biggest backhanded compliment in the world when you talk about lovable losers. But the Lions might be like the first lovable loser that I watch, and I'm like, I'm actually happy no matter what happens with you guys. And that's kind of what I walked away with it, is that they are a legitimately competitive and decent team in the ways that we were talking about preseason. And then as far as like what the film looked like, I mean, the story of the season, looking at the other team, I think first is how the Vikings are going to use Justin Jefferson, right? And now that puts stress on you defensively to figure out how you want to guard him. And we've seen, I guess, in 3 different weeks, 3 different approaches. So, you know, in the Packers game, you're thinking about all the soft zone, right? And Justin Jefferson absolutely tore it up. I think in the Philly game, you got a little bit more tight man coverage. We're going to leave our guy one-on-one on him, and we'll figure the rest of the picture out, behind him. And then watching the Lions, one of the things that kind of blew me away was the commitment that they had to try to get 2 sets of eyes on him, especially early in the game, to take away some of those easy rhythm looks that Kirk Cousins wanted, trying to get him in a rhythm and see if he can pick up some cheap explosive plays.
Talk about that a little bit more. When you say 2 sets of eyes, how does a defense do that structurally? Because they played about 50% man on Sunday and about 78% man on third down, which I want to get into the Lions' defensive tendencies a little bit as we get further into this conversation. But specifically, when they were in some of those looks on Sunday, how were they getting 2 sets of eyes on him?
So specific to the man stuff, and this is something that I think people remember from, NFL films with Bill Belichick talking about Chad Ochocinco, and it's 1 double, right? So, and they played a decent amount of that. So you're basically playing man across the board. And instead of having, in single high looks, you would typically just have a guy that's sitting in the hole underneath to take away those end breakers. If it's 2 man, you obviously have nobody sitting underneath. Both guys are over the top. Well, 1 double, I think, is an attempt to accomplish both, right? Or find that like happy medium where you can get a set of eyes on their best receiver while also keeping a single high safety, so you can give the look that you're loading the box. So there was a lot of that I saw. And I like the way that they were able to manage motions with him, because there was a lot of times where you saw Adam Thielen moving around. They're trying to peel Jeff Okudah off. You're trying to move safeties or force them to check coverages. And they were pretty well committed to keeping 2 sets of eyes on them, even on stacks and bunches. And that's why it was so hard for them to get Jefferson free. And then when they were playing zone, it was out of a half quarter, which is what we've talked about. Cover 8 is what they call it, I think, in the NFL world now, if you're going off of that Fangio tree. And basically the whole setup of that was, or the idea behind it is, if Jefferson is vertical, we're going to have a safety over the top. So that way our corner doesn't have to play it one-on-one. But if he runs any crossing route, we have another safety on the backside that's basically sitting in that intermediate area. And you can see that a lot early in the game on early downs, which is Jefferson on these over routes, on these dig routes. And you're seeing the safety just come flying out the roof to take that away. And I think that forced the Vikings to look at the offense a little bit differently before they were finally able to kind of get themselves loose a bit in the second half.
And half quarter, the traditional way of playing that, we talk about cover 6, is quarter, half, right? So what's the difference playing the cover 8 version that the Fangio tree does that you would do to a receiver like Jefferson?
So what that means is that you're just playing the cover 2 side where all the receivers are. So, Nate has talked about 3x1 and 1x3s and having those single receiver matchups on the backside that require, extra help from a defense. Well, that's when you would play cover 6, because you're getting your cover 2 side to the most dangerous wide receiver on the field. With the Vikings, and because they like to move Jefferson around so much, they were basically playing it like Jefferson was the guy that they always wanted to roll the coverage over, and they were basically just going to play tight coverage with the free safety sitting in that intermediate area on the backside. So just take that picture of, hey, we're playing 4 over 3 is what you would call it. So you got 2 deep players in zone coverage, 2 underneath players in zone coverage to the trip side, and then you're playing a deep safety over the top of the single receiver. Just flip that picture inside out, I guess you would say. So now you're playing with the safety over the top to that 3-by-1 side, and now you have your free safety, your robber type player on the back end to take away some of those passes that are coming back across the middle of the field. And it was really effective for them on Sunday.
I mean, he had 3 catches for 14 yards in this game.
Right.
And the plan, obviously great. You want to get as many sets of eyes on him as possible. But even in some one-on-one situations in man coverage, Jeff Okudah held up really well. Yes. We talked about this a little bit last night. I don't remember at what point in the show Nate mentioned it, but Jeff Okudah really coming on over the first few games of this season. And yesterday he had some moments where it's like, oh man, there was a 3rd and 8 at one point where he shucked Jefferson at the line so hard he knocked him off balance and then just completely disrupted the entire timing of the route to force an incompletion. And in that moment, you look at it, it's like, oh yeah, Jeff Okudah is 6'1", 205, and an out of this world athlete. And him putting it all together, what kind of player can he be? And I think a lot of the fun on the Lions right now and a lot of the things that are worth getting excited about are packed onto the offense. The offense is 5th in the league in EPA per play. They're just good. And they've done this with some offensive line injuries, with Jared Goff at quarterback. We know what he is. That ecosystem they built on that side of the ball, I think, is ready to take off. The defense is still a work in progress. So it's all about adding pieces, finding pieces, and the idea that they might have stumbled into a potential high-level corner this deep into his career, considering all the ups and downs that he's had, is a pretty big win for the Lions' potential long-term team-building plan here.
100%. And, I was talking with some of my colleagues who are Lions fans or cover the Lions. And one of the things that I sent them was that, this defense looks great. They're just missing that high level slot corner that we've talked about basically all off season. They need one of those types of guys to add to their versatility. And I think they need another edge rusher to really be able to speed up quarterbacks. And I think that was part of the problem for them in the second half. Once Kirk Cousins kind of got away from trying to squeeze the ball in to Justin Jefferson, they got away from some of those designer plays to get Justin Jefferson the ball coming across the middle of the field. And then that's when you saw, okay, Kirk Cousins actually has enough time in the pocket to be able to go find the other mismatches there. And, obviously that final drive was a big example of that. They were really picking on the interior of the defense, whether those are slot corners or safeties, with these crossing routes and corner routes. And obviously that corner route, they ended up putting them ahead for them to win the game. That I think was a big tell for them, that while I think they do have a corner one in Jeff Okudah if he's healthy, and this is a level of play that he has, and I think that we can be excited about Aiden Hutchinson as a edge rusher, even though I still may have some questions about whether he can be edge rush 1 for your team. If you can add another cover guy and another pass rush guy, now we're starting to complete the picture in a way that will make this defense really, really interesting, because the scheme is great.
You really don't need to do much on offense this offseason. Your offensive line is coming back probably intact. Vitae is a big cap number. We'll see what they want to do with that. But that group of personnel offensively is pretty much intact. They're going to drop Jameson Williams into this at some point. He's just looming there in the background. Chark is obviously on that 1-year deal. If they decide to bring Chark back or whatever their outside receiver spot looks like, having Jameson Williams in this mix compared to Josh Reynolds is a pretty exciting idea. We'll see what they end up doing at quarterback if they move on from Goff. Just looking at their resources, period, with a couple logical moves, they could have about $60 million in cap space. And they have multiple first-round picks. So do they use both of those first-round picks to try to go get a quarterback of some kind? And if they do that, and then you have a guy on a rookie quarterback contract, if that's the route that they go, and you have that $50-60 million in cap space, now you can start spending on defensive players. You can get some plug-and-play defensive players, because that's what they need, right? Mike Hughes had some rough moments in this game. Awaria had some rough moments in this game. I'm trying real hard. He was number 24 to me in this game, because every 5 minutes it was illegal contact, number 24 on the defense. It's automatic first down. And they just don't have the horses on that side of the ball right now. And that comes through beyond the pass defense issues and the penalties that racked up in this game. the Vikings had a 70.8% rushing success rate in this game, which was the highest in the NFL this week by a pretty wide margin. Vikings are number 1 in the league so far this year, which obviously gets boosted by a day like yesterday. The Lions are dead last in defensive rushing success rate on the season. They are 30th in EPA per play on defense, but they're 5th on offense. So there is a lot to like about this team, and there's a lot to like about tuning into this team, because watching the Lions right now, you're going to get a lot of fireworks and a lot of points, even if the wins are going to be up for debate because of the imbalance we're talking about here.
Oh, they're going to be the absolute enemy of the one-score game in the NFL. Every game is going to come down to the 2-minute drill, and it seems like I don't know if you remember from the Dan Le Batard show, where they used to always joke about the Chargers being stuck in 2-minute situations, down by like 5 or 6. So you got to get a touchdown. You have no timeouts, and something is just meant to go wrong. That is going to be this team this season. But I'm very encouraged, and to your point, with what they have available to them, not only in terms of Jameson Williams and what they already have on the roster in terms of young offensive linemen that are productive. I think they have a wide receiver core with Jameson Williams, given the development of Amon-Ra St. Brown and having DJ Chark. And I think that this is a good role for Chark to be in. So I'd like to see him back here. If you've got 3 guys like that, a full offensive line, 2 running backs that I like, and I think a defense that really just needs some star power, there's not a lot left to address if you do this right going into next season. So every game that they play like this, I think should make Lions fans even more encouraged about what this picture can actually look like in 2023.
We brought up an idea on the Sunday night show about Epicurean wins. And even if your point differential isn't that great, what is your fun differential? And I think the difference in the Lions' Epicurean wins and their Pythagorean wins this year is probably going to be the biggest in the league potentially. And I think that's okay. The sheer amount of times Dan Campbell's like, fuck it, it's 4th and 3. Where are we? All right, we're going for it. I love that. And I kind of wish he had done it at the end instead of kicking the field goal. I have no issue with going for it there. I mean, you're in no man's land. I think they're at the 35 or so yard line right there between the 30 and the 35. I would almost rather go for it there, because that's the mindset that this team has had. And if you get that first down, the game is pretty much over.
Game is done.
So it's a coin flip games like this. And losing a game like this, if you're Detroit at this stage of where things are, I think that's totally fine. Where are you on the Vikings right now?
I'm still not in love with it, which is killing me, because this was supposed to be one of my sleeper teams. So I think that
I thought their offense was going to be gangbusters from the start.
So did I.
It just has not been after week 1.
So did I. It seems like I don't know what Kevin O'Connell is going to have to do to marry up some of the things they do best in the run game with the passing games. I think that as these weeks have gone on, I think we're seeing it almost get more disjointed because of the way that teams have approached them in terms of trying to defend them in the passing game. And I think a lot of this would be different if Adam Thielen was still prime, top tier Adam Thielen that he was, right? If you have a true number 2 next to Jefferson, where you can't spend so many of your resources in coverage trying to take him away, now you're really talking about an opportunity to hammer teams in the run game without having to change personnel. But because they have to change personnel, because they're not a spread run offense, I think that they're running into some of those difficulties where you can see, and I think that we'll continue to see, these high success rates in terms of the run game, but there's not enough explosiveness in it, or enough explosiveness outside of Justin Jefferson in the passing game to, I think, make everything click and come together. So that to me is going to be the challenge for them, is trying to find more ways to generate those explosive plays that aren't dependent on number 18 making them for them.
That's what I was going to ask you. If teams are going to defend you this way, how can you make them pay? And it feels like it's just one-on-one situations with your secondary receiving options. And right now, it almost feels like KJ Osborne has more juice than Adam Thielen does.
Yeah,
in
which is kind of concerning.
I
think. I think that might be concerning for them long term.
A couple other guys I wanted to point out. I thought that Jordan Hicks and Eric Kendricks had some huge moments in coverage on 3rd and short situations that torpedoed Lions drives. That without those plays, I don't know, this game might go differently. The one that Kendricks had on that Hawkinson incompletion, where they tried to leak him out off play action on 3rd and short, just really good awareness. Reminder that Eric Kendricks is pretty good at this. And has been one of those guys in coverage that you can't pick on at that position, which are fewer and further between in the current version of the NFL. So a couple nice moments for those guys. I think both of these teams are firmly in wild card consideration as we get deeper into the season.